So let's welcome our speakers. Amy, would you like to go first and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Amy, and I work on the mindful design system over at Onsura Health. We're practice management software in the healthcare space. So it's like mental health, occupational health, behavioral health, these sort of apps and software. By night, I'm the Seattle chapter lead for Into Design Systems meetups based here in Seattle, which is very Seattle gloomy weather today. Good to meet you all.
Love it. Please feel free to add links to your upcoming events. It will be great for other people to connect if there are more things happening around design systems. So Ryan, would you like to go next?
My name is Ryan Williamson Cardno. I manage our designers on the design systems team as well as our design language team. We work in identity, password management, credentials, that sort of thing, extended access. We are also hiring. I'll take a second to just make a plug. There's links in here. We are hiring staff designers for extended access management, for AI, as well as not yet posted, but we are hiring some senior managers across those departments as well. And we are hiring all across the board in engineering, PM stuff. So there are links to all of that on here. So if you're in the FigJam board, feel free to apply, please.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing opportunities with the community. Love it. Oana, would you like to go next?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Oana. I'm a design lead at HubType. I've been working in design for about 12 years. Actually started in fashion design, then moved into product design. And for the last 6 years, I've been fully focused on building digital products. I'm passionate about design systems and accessibility. I've worked in startups as well as larger organizations like Dow Jones, as well as being an entrepreneur. Now at HubType, I lead the design team. So it's a mix of craft, system thinking, and real world product design experience. Thank you.
Love it. Lorenz, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm Lorenz. I originally started as an engineer, but right now I'm a freelance product designer running my own studio here in Munich. I currently work remotely for Timeline, which is with biotech companies selling supplements and skincare. And I'm leading the digital design there and owning the design system, which supports multiple projects like the website and other projects like emails or kiosk applications. And other than that, I'm also working on some passion projects like articles, Figma plugins, and this kind of stuff.
What Figma plugins do you have available in the community?
One relatively popular, which is like linking variables in Figma to the values of the components. And you can, I have a link to a hotkey, so I can just while working, I can just put in the number and then press my hotkey and it automatically links all the numbers to the tokens and just also respects the scoping of the variables, which is just like a very quick way of keeping things aligned with your variables and not having to go into that annoying drop down. The other one is the really stupid one. It just flashes fireworks when you delete layers. It's really, really stupid.
This is great. Like the community is so great. Like there's so many fun plugins as well. So love it.
You may say stupid. I wonder, is that a necessity for us to all push as a standard?
With all the AI tools, now it's so easy to do stuff. So I'm sure there is a huge amount of new plugins that are made just for fun.
I mean, it's often fine to see big companies using these plugins because you can see who runs the plugins and then you see, oh, cool people from Fortune 500 companies firing fireworks when deleting layers. It brings me joy when thinking about it.
Great. So thank you very much for joining. So the goal for this session is to inspect and reflect on how Horizon design system is being used within the ServiceNow products to learn best practices and grow together. One important thing is that here it's mostly like a learning opportunity. We are not inviting folks who actually worked on this design system on purpose to make it open. We are here just to learn and find some interesting new opportunities. Unfortunately, I was not able to get access to the actual products. So today we are going to go through just overall perspective on what kind of topics do they have within their design system documentation, and we will just learn from it. If you are interested in joining the sessions, feel free to join our upcoming ones where we will do the same thing for eBay Evo design system as well. please feel free to join our FigJam file and let us know in the YouTube comments if you can hear us, if you can see us. Great. So let's start with documentation. We went through the documentation website from Horizon Design System. They have a lot of things here. There are some sections for different platforms like workspaces, native mobile, service portal, or core UI. And within getting started, they have a lot of interesting content inside. I will pass the mic to you. What are the interesting things that you found within the ServiceNow Horizon Design System that you would like to say for yourself?
One of the most interesting things that I found was that they have user personas for their app frameworks. So even in the core UI, you will see a table with the user personas, and I think that's great. Besides their appealing design, that is also something that you can notice, right? It's also a new website for their design system. So I think they put a lot of work into it, appealing and for people to feel good when they read the documentation.
And what do you like? How do you think like these personas will be helpful for other people? Like, do you have any ideas on how other, like maybe product managers or engineers or designers will able to use that? Or do you see it as more like an expansion of design system where we are not talking only about components, we're also talking about other things? Like, what do you think about this expansion? Lawrence, would you like to share your thoughts on that?
Yes, of course. I haven't seen that very often, but I think it makes a lot of sense in the context of ServiceNow, considering that there are actually many people having problems explaining what ServiceNow is doing, considering it's just like a massive product with many different stakeholders and customers. I think it's useful for everybody in the company to understand like what kind of components are used when. But I mean, I think like particularly useful for designers and see a lot of value for that.
I
Brian?
think thinking about that, it's useful for designers, but it's also one of the goals that we strive for when building design systems is creating this shared language between designers, developers, product people, even if you can get it into sales and customer support. Personas are great artifacts for having that shared language. It gives you the context, like, who is this feature for? Why does this component solve this problem for a given persona? I think every design system should try to bring that context up as high as they can and make it as relevant, because it only helps give people a better understanding of who they're problem solving for and how they actually will meet those needs.
Love it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I thought it was interesting that looking at the documentation for the Horizon Design System, there's specific callouts for designers and developers, but not one for POs, yet the documentation very much serves POs. I thought that was really interesting because, like personas, this can be used as part of the user story and the Jira tickets. And there's even a lot of education in the design system documentation where there's even a UX principles section dedicated to the design process, and personas are even called out there. I found that really fascinating, just the level of maturity of this design system where there's so much focus on that educational standpoint, that whole design thinking process of like understanding and empathizing with your users being one of those first steps. Like, who are we designing and building for? And I loved how that was surfaced, but I did find it interesting. Thanks for sharing the screen, Fareed. There's like in that left panel, design, develop, and UX basics, and no call out specifically for like product owners, product managers. However, the documentation itself really does serve all.
But do you envision in the future that there will be new sections in the design systems? Like, as you mentioned, there will be design, develop, maybe user research, maybe product management, content, and others, where that will be the entry point for other disciplines also to use design system in a way and contribute back.
Yeah, I was curious because, like, not working on the team or actually knowing anyone on the ServiceNow's Horizon DS team, I'm curious if it's just like implied that, of course, a PO is coming here and there's documentation for them. is that why there's not like a PO call out? Like, are people wearing many hats? I honestly don't know how they are structured, just because some design systems do, kind of create like a guideline, depending if you're coming to this design system as a designer, as a developer, as a researcher, maybe an opportunity for them and maybe completely not how they build. I don't know.
Yeah. The interesting note here, every time when I see emojis, I feel like, oh, it's ChatGPT generated content. But maybe they just love emojis here. But yeah, the Horizon design system is very advanced. I personally really loved it as well. We can also take a look into their Figma file. So they open source that as well. It's a part of the community. And here on the left side, we can see that there are different templates and pages as well available. And all the components here are shown, represented as well. So people can just take a look into them and see how those kind of templates are looking in real world, right? Let me go through their community page, and they have a ton of materials. Let's dive deeper into one of them, the components and variables. And I would love to get your thoughts on the structure. Like, do you have any interesting practices that you would like to say for yourself as well? They have a cover, they have some legal agreements, getting started, explaining all the libraries that they have, first time install, how to link libraries, and how to use components and variants, accessibility, variables, typography, icons, and even templates. And for the guidelines here, they have guidelines on foundations like tokens. What are the spacing guidelines, grids and layouts, colors, typography, and other things. And as a part of the components, they have a lot of things here. So you will be able to see different components as card component. Let's go into the badge component, for example. And you can see that it's pretty very lean. There's not much documentation in the Figma file. And I believe this is a good practice, but we'll love to get your thought. Because when we are doing things in Figma, the only people who can edit things is the designers, right? But we are limiting other disciplines like engineers to contribute back here. Let me check if they have links to the documentation here on their components. Oh, yes, they have description here. Any reactions or thoughts on the Figma file that they have?
Fareed, could you click into the component level documentation where you said there is the description?
Sure.
Like on the
Sure.
components, like the card components.
Yes, that's the.
Can you open
hard
up
to
the
see.
documentation? It's pretty basic. And it
But they
links
have a
out
link.
to the design system.
I think it's a good practice to keep documentation in Figma. And if you want to share design system outside of a design team, quite like it if you have everything centralized on the website and not within Figma. Because I find like everybody's not really used to Figma or using it as a bit of a pain to go into there and then read the documentation there. But that's my point of view of that.
I agree with that approach as well. And I will just play a wee bit of devil's advocate in that, given the maturity of maybe the design system you're working in or the team you're working with, you might make trade-offs to say like documentation in Figma is right for us right now.
Mhm.
It's never things that are intended to be completely set in stone and not iterated on. So I think that like getting to this is the ideal state. And I'm sure there's even like more ideal things that we would all love to get this to as well. But making sure that you're at the right spot where you are in the journey of maturing your design system is also important, and not trying to jump too far ahead.
Yeah, I think this is like gold. I've definitely had kind of a combo approach where there's a link out to the design system documentation where that is living. I've experienced very fragmented documentation where you may have some things living in Storybook. So there's a Storybook link, and some things living in Confluence or Zero Height. So you have a link for that too. Meeting people where they're at, something that I've had some teams struggle with in the past is actually clicking the link to the documentation. It's extra work. It's not meeting them where they are at all the time. So like to your point, Ryan, on just the maturity of the teams and specific needs, sometimes kind of a hybrid approach can be needed where there's design system documentation living at the component level or surfaced in Figma to help people find what they need. But it's a lot to maintain when you're maintaining documentation in multiple places.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. Just from my own background, I worked in relatively small product teams basically my whole career so far. And whenever we tried to go in that direction of maintaining different places, it went out of date at some point, and it's not feasible for us. But I agree, like for a company at that scale like ServiceNow, it's definitely possible.
I mean, that was going to be my plug of like, who here wants a content delivery? Would love to live in a day where it's like we write it in one place and we can distribute it to all the correct contextual moments for
Yes,
our audiences.
please.
That would be
Now that's
also
a great
a plug to
application of
Figma.
AI.
Exactly. Hey, could we in the future get analytics on things like who's clicking the links and how many clicks to the documentation? Like, we like data.
Yes.
It's a really good idea. Is there an API to update the component description, right? Does anyone knows?
Yes, I know, like the way I think, does the MCP server provide this information?
I remember they
I'm not
had
sure.
external links, ability to change the external links here. So that might be an interesting approach where if you have a documentation website, and then you can just write a script that will go through all your Figma components and will update the description and will update the links. And also to track links, right? Maybe also you can use services like Bitly where you can track how many people went through your link.
Just a reminder,
Yeah.
that's what's happening.
Maybe it's like the market needs for that is like 10 companies in the world. So others can just make simpler stuff.
One idea here, maybe Figma could use knowledge bases, right? So we could use our documentation as a source of truth and then input that knowledge base into Figma so we can document our components. Figma
I
people.
love it.
Great.
We might have
Yeah.
I was just gonna say we might have a beta group here for Figma if,
Yeah.
if you all are looking to test with some folks.
I was telling to Figma, like some of the team members there, that I would love to have Figma Analytics embedded into this right side panel so that when I'm updating all those components, I would like to see the usage, how many people are using those, which teams are using this specific component that I've selected. So enriching this area with some additional insights will be great. Love it. Okay, let's move to the next topic. We have here more things to share in our speakers only board. So let me just add things into our feed jump board. Okay, we went through the ways how Horizon documented their design system. They have pretty advanced documentation website and they have Figma file and they are very open in the community. They've shared a lot of things. I'm sure within the service now, it's like one of like 5 different design systems and just one of them got public. Others are still on private. That's a great movement that every organization is taking to making their design systems open source to show the level of craft and educate and also inspire others. Love it. Let's start with the first topic that we wanted to discuss is the ServiceNow Horizon design system demonstrates how design systems are evolving beyond traditional component libraries to become horizontal platforms that enable multiple disciplines. We have Q&A section here. If you would like to ask some questions, feel free to click on Ask Question or ask those questions on the YouTube Live. And if you would like to share your thoughts as well, feel free to use those sticky notes and just copy and add your thoughts directly here. So let's get started with the first topic, right? They started this idea of expanding design system, and maybe this was a more like initiative from the content team where they will like to connect the dots internally and share how they think about personas. But how do you envision that in the future? Do you believe it's too much for the design system? Should we rename design system to a product system in the future? And what will be the ideal implementation of this persona integration? I would love to have personas as a links, maybe, so that I could click on this link and see the overall experience, but we'll love to get your thoughts. Let's dream a little bit. Let's think what the future state might look like for this part.
I think that having the personas defined in the design system documentation helps design systems designers to have more empathy about the user personas. Because sometimes I feel that design system practitioners, they between them and the product, there's a gap. Sometimes they feel like they just build components for other designers, which are their user personas, and they forget about the end user actually. So I think this helps bridge that gap and also help them create empathy with the end user. User personas and jobs to be done should be a tool for all designers, because in the end, we are building products for people and for AI. But let's say for people now, right? Maybe there could be a link to dig in deeper about the user personas and understand the jobs to be done. And also, this minimizes the time thinking which components to use. I think this is what they wanted to do with such an extensive documentation. Minimize the time thinking about not so important things and focus on innovation. This is what I understand that they tried to do. So I think they won't stop here, of course.
Lorenz, do you believe there is a way, maybe when it comes to atomic design, right? In the spectrum of going into pages and templates, this is the part of component complexity where connecting to some user research or personas or this kind of jobs to be done format might be helpful. We'd love to get your thoughts.
I think it comes down to what Ryan said earlier, the scale of the organization. For most of the projects I work on, this would be not feasible. But for that makes sense. The only thing I'm missing a little bit is they have this documentation here for how they define the personas, but then they're not really saving that knowledge somewhere in the design system. So at least like that kind of feels a lot of work lost in the system. And I just would love to see that, because I would join the design team and I see like a persona like manager. It's not really a lot of insight what that means to me. That's my only what maybe improve here. Or
yeah, I almost wonder if there's a higher overview here, and then as you get farther into, because they have the multiple workspaces and applications, and I have those reminders of like, oh, this component is for these personas. That way you have this overview up front here where you're able to dig more into what the personas are. And then once you understand them, the tie back at the component level could be more about the like, hey, this serves this persona or that persona. Similar to how we often will do like a do this, don't do that checklists on components.
This is so cool. Amy, you had a thought?
I was just dropping a screenshot from the basics where they have a call out on defining the users with personas and creating personas for the project. There's so much effort put into talking about personas, but then the actual personas are not provided or linked out to here. And I get that it's public, but maybe that's something that they don't want to make public. I'd be very curious, like the decisions that went behind that, like why, like if personas are so robust and exist, why are they not linked or available or surfaced here within the documentation?
Love it. So the core theme here is that design system could be this connecting layer horizontally within the organization, right? So that's why those kind of new ideas, bringing personas or maybe adding AI stuff, this is helping the organization to enable these new things, right? And the persona integration, this is like new topic. I never saw personas integrated into design system documentation, but we expanded this thought a little bit more and thought about what kind of future state might look like in this case. It's a good idea to maybe start connecting your personas, adding links and maybe connecting them to your voice of the customer platforms where sales, marketing, and product talking the same language. Similar way how design system solves the problem of how we name things properly, the same way how we are unifying our language across the way how we name components or what kind of patterns do we have. The personas and jobs to be done framework can unify those kind of languages across marketing, sales, and product, right? And maybe in the future, it will be a product system, not a design system. And we also spoke about the way that if we will take a look into atomic design, on the pages and template spectrum area of complexity, this kind of insights might be helpful. It will be really hard to justify that this specific button is only available for this specific persona. But if we're talking about specific booking experience or pattern or page, we could define that. I really like, Ryan, your idea is that having that available on the component page itself, similar way how we have checklists or maybe some information about here's the Figma file or GitHub link, and here's the link to our user research repository, or here is the for which specific persona this specific experience is looking like. And within this page, if we will click on this persona, they might see the flow, like the whole customer journey map, and see how page level or template level components are connected to those journeys. Love it. Second topic, AI documentation. Dedicated AI section showing how design systems can lead organizational thinking about AI tool adoption and usage guidelines. So let me go through the documentation. They have a lot of things. I'm personally going to save this page for myself because there are so many good things, and I really like when they are also explaining. They had some diagrams as well. Any thoughts, your reactions on the AI part of the Horizon design system? Ryan, would you like to go first?
Sure. I think it's a really smart addition, and I think it's something it's good to get out in front of. However you may feel about AI, it's getting integrated into the way that we work, not just the tooling, but one thing I think, since we all work on design systems, and as Oana pointed out, we're very tied into who is it that we're serving and designing for. I think AI is that next kind of customer group or user of what we produce that we should be aware of. So kind of getting out and putting some table stakes out there, even if it's just a first draft, is, I think, a great start.
Love it, love it. And I like the way
Yeah.
how they also show the diagrams.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good flex on how they are integrating and working together with feature teams, because a lot of times when, like, say AI features or products are getting built, seems like many times feature teams are leading those efforts, and seeing that sort of alignment here where, like, literally there's guidance provided in the design system, that meant that people had conversations and like really worked together on like, how are we building together and how can we educate the rest of our partners on like the different types of AI, what AI is, how we're approaching it. I just thought that was so brilliant. I'm also saving this page.
And I really like the way how they show real examples as well. I feel like this is the combination of components and patterns. They actually have patterns also as a separate section, but this is like a good entry point for anyone interested in AI, and they could see how these kind of things can be enabled within their organization. So I'm very curious about this thought line, right? Where when it comes to design system, there are two main drivers this year: accessibility, and the second part is AI. This is like two main things that could drive the adoption of the design system. And I see a lot of design systems are adding those AI parts in there. But do you believe AI documentation should belong to the design system? Or like, what are your thoughts on that? Oana, please.
No, I think we lost you for a
I
second.
think for me too.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that there are too many enablers within the design systems at the moment for this year. It's accessibility and AI, where those kind of two topics are driving adoption, and people are interested in design system not only to understand which kind of buttons or search bars we are using, but actually like this kind of horizontal programs. The question is, for this kind of AI topic, do you believe it belongs to the design system, or we shouldn't limit ourselves with this kind of components and patterns and tokens, and we should just think about maybe horizontal like enablers or something like big topics? Or
So my thought on this is that it's helpful to have AI integrated into the documentation of the design system instead of having it as a side project. And also, this helps designers, engineers, other people like product managers help them understand and set up the basics for everyone. Because I saw lots of confusion around AI agents. Like in the beginning, there was this confusion, and also using the term agent can be also human agent. So what's the difference between AI assistant and the AI agent? And I think it's very good to have it here in the documentation and for everyone to have the same knowledge as a base. And from there, we can innovate.
Love it. This is great.
Also,
Yeah.
it depends on like where the design system team is sitting in terms of like the org goals and distributing that education. Like documentation just in general at orgs can be so fragmented where it's like living in Confluence, SharePoint, email, like all these different folders, it's all over the place. I think is really smart, like it's strategic from the design system team's standpoint for sure. And I think has a lot of potential to just be massively helpful. Like instead of trying to find where do we have documentation in like SharePoint or like does design team have it, you're going to find what you need on like everything about how we build. So smart.
Love it.
Because now basically try to become an AI first company. So I think it's also a necessity for them to have that somewhere in the design documentation as well.
I think there's a part here in not to just like throw sound bites in, but like in design systems, a lot of what we tout for is like guidance over governance and make it easy to do the right thing. If you put this out there, you at least are trying to make it easy for the designers or whoever's coming to consume this to do the right thing. And I think that's where you can also, as a design systems team or whoever you're partnering with, maybe to even generate this content, even if you're just the host and the platform for it, you can say, hey, here's a way that you can ensure accessibility is still thought of while using AI tools or thinking of designing for AI. You can kind of bake these things in and you can make it easier to think towards getting the right outcomes, even if this is all new territory and kind of the Wild West.
I just love that design system became this place for the new things like AI when it comes to external guidance and documentation, because within ServiceNow, I'm sure they have blog pages, they have helps articles, help centers, but they chose design system as this kind of horizontal enabler to add a topic on the AI part. And this is very interesting transition in the market. Maybe there will be more things added into a design system. It will not be only about components and tokens and patterns. There will be more stuff in there. And yeah, I just love seeing AI being integrated into design system. Love it. Let's move to the next topic, component evolution and decision history. The core insight is that large organizations struggle with maintaining institutional knowledge about why design decisions were made and how components evolved over time. If we will take a look into their components, and there will be some kind of, for example, activity stream, right? They have beautifully designed, beautifully documented component page, right? But it will be great, maybe like the same how we have anatomy page section, right? Or the usage information or design recommendations with do and don'ts. Maybe it will be also great to see the evolution of this component. Some design systems, they are adding version information here somewhere where you can switch between like current version and the previous version. So if you are using the previous one, you can take a look into the guidelines related to the previous one. It's mostly related to the code, not much for designers or content teams. But what's the thing about this topic overall on maybe in the future we could have a section where we could document the evolution, saying like 2 years ago we had this kind of thing, but it evolved into something else. We've done some testing, it evolved again. We changed again, we rolled back. And this is the reason why we rolled back. I feel like the do's and don'ts captures some of those decisions making, but it's not capturing the whole history. So the question is like, what are your thoughts on that? Is that maybe a real thing? Like, is it needed? Do you see a need on that?
I think I would love to bring that approach. I mean, as I said, it's more common in UI frameworks like Chakra, UI, when you have this V want to switch at the top. I would love to see that in more design systems. The only thing that immediately comes to my mind is material design, where you can easily go back to the previous versions. But I would love to see how the system evolved over time.
I would love also to see that. I think this will help understand what was the thought. For example, when I want to make a change, right? Because something doesn't work, I would like to see previous versions of that. But then the concern here is to not clutter the documentation, right? To make it in such a way that feels flawless and not difficult to navigate through. So this would be the only concern. Otherwise, I think it would be great.
Something
for me
I
also,
also
like-
think about is
No.
oh, something I was thinking about was like, I know with material design, like to your point, Lorenz, there's the version history, and some of this can be like it's on the documentation, but also on the code side. And I'm curious if people, what is more helpful like to the end users of the design system? Are they actually looking for like how that component has evolved and changed, or are they looking at more the pattern or experience level of how the entire experience has changed and how all those pieces work together? Because sometimes it's entwined, right? As part of like a redesign or a page standardization or some sort of larger effort. So yeah, curious people's thoughts on that.
I mean, I'm kind of, to your point, Amy, thinking through this, like we're talking about two big subjects here. There's like semantic versioning, which wouldn't capture a lot of that design thinking that I feel like I'm hearing from the group, and like the value in being like, we tried this, but it didn't work. Semantic version is just going to get you the stuff that shipped. And then there's the like, I think back and it connected the dot of like, anyone remember Abstract as the product? And like you had all of, those things, and you're like, oh, here's your prune branches. It's back here. You could dig it up and look at all the, explorations that kind of went by the wayside for one reason or another. It's two different camps and different audiences, I think, maybe even being solved for.
Yeah. And then also, where does that belong and who owns it? Like to your point of the call out on design thinking, is it design owns this? Is its place in the design system as just part of history and the design system links out to that history? Or, yeah, curious like where that would live and where that would be helpful for people rather than confusing. Like at what point in the end user journey would they be looking back on like, why did we arrive here and make these decisions? Or like, we're considering changing the type of navigation that we use, side nav, top nav, and, how did we get here? Did we do this in the past? Like, what's that history? And I think that's a problem that teams encounter when there's change management. People leave, new people come on. Like, who owns this? Who has the history and the backstory of why a company made the decisions that they made? And then, yeah, who owns it? Where does it live?
I feel like the problem here is that within larger organizations like Google, right? Let's imagine I just started working as a designer on the Google search, right? And I would like to redesign the search bar that billions, millions of people are using every day, right? It's a big thing to change. And I have a ton of ideas as a designer or as an engineer, but having a place where I could see the history log of all the evolution of this component of this search bar, right? And saying, oh, I would like to make it different, right? And someone from the design system could say, oh, we actually had that 6 months ago. We tried it on a specific market. It didn't work out. We rolled back. Now it's the same how it is, right? Like, do you believe those kind of insights are related to the design system? If we are talking about design system, right, the main purpose here is to document agreements that we have around patterns, about the components, about the usage of them, etc. So maybe this kind of evolution history might be helpful to understand, like, or maybe even capture ID bank, right? There's ton of new people coming in and they have different ideas, but because of the technical constraints or resource limitations, they have these ideas and they are just buried in Figma files, and they like people will never even see them. Do you believe the design system might become this place where those kind of ideas, those kind of decisions can be captured. So if anyone who would like to dive deeper into those cool or GitHub issues or A/B testings or like Confluence pages where we are showing all our experiments and the reasoning why we made this decision, and also maybe capturing internal feedback from the design system customers saying that, oh, we actually need this parameter as a prop. Can you please add it, right? So what do you think about that? Like, we're just brainstorming on the future of design system here.
I just want AI to be the historian that takes all of our data and like reads our minds in conversations and then takes all of that and is like AI historian. That's my dream.
Love
As
it.
long as it doesn't hallucinate the whole backstory, and then the people aren't there to refute it and be like, no, that is not in his history.
Full fun. Love it. Okay, great. So next topic that we have, let me just go into our speakers only board, is the real world usage. I know that we don't have enough time to cover everything, but we will leave the board today. We like change the format just a little, tried new things. We didn't like go deep into actual components from the ServiceNow because I was not able to get access to the products, but we learned a lot from their documentation. They have really good things on AI. And we also spoke about the future state where this kind of new enablers, and we're really happy that design system becomes a new home for AI practices or this kind of AI agents documentation where it helps to align people and educate and evolve internal practices, right? And we also spoke about the component evolution and decision history. Like, can it be helpful? Will it be helpful or not? Like, what's the future state of the design system? Before we wrap up, the recordings will be available on the YouTube. So wanted to give everyone a couple of minutes to share what their top highlight of the session is, and we can wrap up the session. Amy, would you like to go first? Like, what is your top highlight of the session?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just getting to nerd out and chat with other people about stuff. I work on a very small design system team. So we're a team of two, an engineer and a designer, and we definitely chat and nerd out. But I just really enjoy getting to be in the room with other people and like dive into all the stuff and see how other people are approaching it. I think as a form of secondary research, just seeing how other people approach it makes you question how you are approaching your design system and how you might improve it. So those have been highlights for me.
What? Ryan?
Yeah, I'll similarly echo that it's great to get to chat with this is a small industry. Like design systems, it's still pretty small group. So it's always great to get to meet folks, and we all seem to be pretty well distributed around the world at this point. So it's fun to meet new folks. It's also really refreshing to get to pull up and talk about someone else's design system and not your own in front of an audience of people. So I appreciate that. And, I echo what Amy said. It's refreshing to kind of get that competitive landscape audit. And we lack the context maybe to why they did some of the things that they did, but it's fun to kind of speculate and see like, oh, what can I bring back? Why did they possibly do it this way? So I enjoyed these conversations. Thank you.
Love it. Oana?
Yeah, my highlight was to be able to chat with you and be optimistic and don't have limits, right? So for 1 hour, we were able to analyze and then maybe to think about the future, how the future could be, and get a little bit of inspiration from your ideas as well.
Yeah, it's just really like taking some time to talk about like some other design system than like the kind of design system I built from scratch. It's just like really relaxing to do this deep dive on somebody else's work. I'm just take like an hour to do that.
Love it. This is great. Thank you very much for joining the session. Thank you very much for finding time and investing your time into the community. I'll see you around next time. Take care.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.